about to tell us. What? From this point until the end of the Torah, Moshe will never really fail again. He will shadow the great people of the world in a way that you wouldn't even notice that they existed. All the heroes and legends of history who are either myths or real, Moshe will never fail again. From this point onwards, everything he does will happen, and he will do the most historical thing ever to have happened since the creation of mankind. He will bring the Jewish people out of Egypt without lifting a finger, without shooting a gun, and he will bring them to Har Sinai to get the Torah, and he will bring them to the borders of Eretz Israel before he dies. He will never, Feta Egel is a hiccup, but he will never, and that wasn't his failure, that was the failure of the people. As a leader, he will never fail again. Everything Moshe does from here onwards is going to be fantastic. He is going to fulfill a shlichut that no human living being has ever done before. He's going to speak to God. And no one will speak to God in the way that Moshe has spoken to God ever again. Now I'm telling you, Rabbi Hirsch says, why we need to know the genealogy of Moshe Rabbeinu. כדי להעיד בזאת לכל הדורות כי רגיל ואנושי הוא מקום מחשבתם, רגיל ואנושי הוא טבע בריאתם. You have to know, you have to look inside, or you won't be able to follow. You have to know, that's why I went to the trouble of photocopying it. Didn't have a secretary, I did it all on my own. You have to know that what generally happens in history when such a person comes onto the scene is that people begin to worship that person. They tend to think that person is a God, that he is the salvation, that he is everything. And therefore the Torah goes out of its way to underline the fact that Moshe is a regular human being, coming from a regular family, with aunts and uncles, with sisters and brothers. He's not a God. He's not some kind of angel. He's a regular human being. It has happened in days of old. The people have come as saviors of their people. And after they died, this is a very clear reference to Christianity. And after they died, because of course you know that Jesus did not create Christianity, Paul created Christianity after Jesus had died. Jesus lived and died a Jew. The Last Supper was Seder. He lived and died a Jew. That's why in Hebrew, Easter is called Pascha, because it happened on Pesach. So, but after these people died, their human image has been replaced, and they have been replaced by Elohiyut and Motza Elohim. Suddenly they are gods, they are the children of God. We know very well, says Rav Hirsch, about a certain Jew from a later generation. We don't know who his family is, right? We know who his mother is. His mother wasn't Miriam, it wasn't Mary, it was Miriam, right? It should be Miriam land, not Maryland. Her name was Miriam. And she was a Jewess. We don't know who his father was. It certainly wasn't God. But because he inspired people, they created him into a God. He became a God. That's why the Rambam will classify Christianity as Avodah Zarah. It's Avodah Zarah because they turned man into a god. Well, it's a sin to even doubt that this man was a god. Moshe Shalano, but Adam is a man, it's a human being. Nishar Adam, he remains a man. He will not even be a man. When his face radiated with light, כבר הוריד התורה משמיים וכבר הולך וניסים את העם במדבר והנחילה מניצחונו יעד סיבה כאן השם להציג את תעודת ייחוסו להציג בזאת הרעותה. God wanted to make sure that this man who was going to bring the Torah, was going to lead the people through the wilderness, who's going to lead us through the sea. I knew that he had a family, he had a father, he had a mother, he had a cousin, he had a brother, he had a sister. Beyond Diber Hashem or Moshe, Moshe be'eretz Mitzrayim, Moshe was Egypt, they all knew him. It was Moshe. He was an Egyptian. He was a regular Jew as well. Everyone knew his parents and his grandparents. Everyone knew his aunties and his uncles, his cousins. They knew everything about Moshe. Who Moshe Aaron? The person who took us out of Egypt was a human being, was a regular human being. Just like you and me. He was a regular human being. This, of course, is a mistake the Jews themselves are going to make a kitisa, right? Where according to some of our Mepharshim, Moshe goes missing, they need to replace Moshe. They can't be without Moshe. They make a golden calf, is meant to replace Moshe. Moshe becomes this mythical, beyond human being. Everyone knew him for 80 years. They didn't know him well, right? Because he left town for a long time. He has human nature. He lives as a human being. He stutters. He's a regular person. Who are Aaron and Moshe? This is who Aaron and Moshe are. They're the people who speak to Pharaoh. Who Moshe and Aaron? Regular human beings like anyone else. God chose them as a medium to do what needs to be done. So I've seen this Rav Hirsch on many occasions. And I wanted to go in a different direction. The point clearly that Rav Hirsch wants to make here is that Moshe's a regular Joe. He's not a god, not someone we should worship. And then I saw another comment. I think the second comment in here, I wrote the Parashat HaShavua by Shai Leibovitz. I think this gave me the idea that I wanted to pursue here. And he comes in a similar direction, but with a totally different angle to that of Rav Hirsch. And he says like this: after Moshe had accepted the job that he has to do now, to go into Egypt, to present the Jewish people in front of Pharaoh, after he has already stood in front of Pharaoh, and he now has to return to Pharaoh, even though the first visit wasn't so successful. Together with his brother, to start the process of the redemption of the Jewish people and bringing us out of Egypt. Just like we said, the story now takes a time out and goes through the genealogy of Moshe and Aaron. That's what we said before. And now, explicitly, the Torah tells us things that before were only alluded to. The Sidrat Shemot, in Shemot, we're not really told